I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report. My name is Tom Baker from Race Chaser Online and Speed 77 Radio, and I am going to be joined by a pair of my colleagues on this Thursday night in Charlotte, North Carolina. The first of which is our co-host and producer of Speed 77 Radio, Jacob Seelman. And Jacob, it has been a most exciting week in motorsports, both on a local level and a national level. And we are going to be talking with a couple of the young drivers from the regional touring series who are about to make their first start this weekend in the Truck Series of Martinsville. But before we do that, it's also been a very tough week in the motorsports community with the loss of both Bobby Waltrip and also Linda Petty.
Yes, it has been, Tom, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Speed 77 Radio and tonight's Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show. It has been a very exciting week on track, and as you alluded to, Tom, a tough weekend off track. I'm excited to talk about all the racing tonight, but the losses of both Bobby Waltrip and Linda Petty still ring home for so many of us here tonight. It's been a long week. I know you went to Bobby's funeral earlier this afternoon, and I know very, very close colleague of yours, just a very, very passionate person in the world of motorsports. Obviously, not always the one who was talked about when you figure you have Daryl and Michael, who took a lot of the spotlight, but Bobby very passionate about his place in the world of motorsports, and you worked with him for many, many years on the go-kart side of things, and I know have a lot of fond memories about that as well.
You know, I really do, Jacob, and for those who know, Bobby was the middle brother. He was 60 years old, and the reason that a lot of you don't know too much about Bobby Waltrip is because, unlike his brothers Daryl and Michael, Bobby did not really follow them into the NASCAR arena as a driver. Bobby did work in NASCAR with Daryl when Daryl first started his team after his days with Rick Hendrick. Bobby was the one who actually oversaw the property and helped build the buildings and kind of oversaw the organization of the team before he went professional go-kart racing. And one of the things that he was most proud of, and it was talked about today at the funeral too, is that he also got a win at Daytona, just like his brothers. The only difference is he did it in a go-kart, and Bobby was just a legend in go-kart circles, not only for his racing, but also for his announcing and his promotional aspects that he helped with, the marketing and promotion. And, of course, I had the blessing to be able to work with Bobby for years as an announcer, and the signature race that we've done for the last 12 years was the O'Reilly Auto Parts National Indoor Kart Championships in Batesville, Mississippi on Thanksgiving weekend every year. And Lanier James brought Bobby and I both over there and would do that every year, and was thankful that Lanier made it over to the funeral service from Tennessee today. But want to just pay a special nod to Pastor Todd Shaw for how beautifully he conducted the service. Bobby was adamant that when it came time, he told Lee Bob, his son, several times, when I die, I don't want this to be a pity, a sad thing. I want you all to just, kick back, crack open a beer, and have a party. And, it was definitely, there were a lot of stories told, and most of them humorous. And, but it was a beautiful service and an opportunity, I think, very fitting opportunity. I think Bobby would have been smiling today at the fact that it didn't ever get too maudlin. I mean, it was kept light. So my condolences to the Waltrip family and to all of those who knew and loved him. And I know that he's in a better place now, and he's going to be with us going forward as we carry on his work in the go-kart arena, do our best to fill his shoes. He had a booming voice, and I'm just going to miss it terribly. But Jacob, not just with Bobby Waltrip, but also Linda Petty passing away as well. And Linda was such a cornerstone in this sport, and you so eloquently pointed it out in the blog that you wrote yesterday on this. The king lost his queen.
Yeah, Tom, and certainly, as you said, another very tough loss. Anybody who was in the garage area knew Linda Petty. You knew whenever she was there, and you knew when she wasn't. And it was tougher for her to make it in later years, but Linda Petty just, one of those spirits that carried herself with such elegance, such grace, and when she spoke, you listened because you knew what she meant to NASCAR. And as you said, the king lost his queen, and our thoughts, prayers, and condolences certainly with the entire Petty and Waltrip families as they go through these times of loss, and, with the whole NASCAR community, too. As we always say, racing is a family, and when one of us hurts, we all hurt. So we do all hurt a little bit more tonight, knowing that we've lost two dear friends who are no longer with us, but at the same time, we take comfort in knowing they would want us to push forward to this weekend and continue on being at the racetrack, because if they were here with us, that's exactly what they would have tried to do. So, Tom, what say we talk about some racing this weekend?
Absolutely. We will dedicate this show to both Linda and Bobby and move forward and talk about some racing from this past weekend. Before we do that, though, let's welcome our third co-host at the round table, our Northeast correspondent, New England correspondent, Kyle Souza. Kyle, welcome back on a Thursday night, and lots going on. I know that there was a race scheduled this coming weekend up your way that unfortunately has already been postponed. Tell us about that.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report. We have got a great show lined up for you. We're going to start it up here in the Northeast with a kind of a sad note, a little bit, at least for me, and a lot of the race teams up here. This coming weekend was scheduled to be the annual Budweiser Blast-Off weekend at the Waterford Speed Bowl in Waterford, Connecticut, scheduled to increase with the Valenti Modified Racing Series as well as the weekly divisions of the Waterford Speed Bowl. Well, this afternoon, the Valenti Modified Racing Series Facebook page coming out with the news that the program has been postponed this weekend due to the weather forecast. Weather saying it's going to rain on both Saturday and Sunday afternoon, so forcing the cancellation this weekend and the postponement to April 12th and 13th. That is not this coming weekend, not the next one, but 2 weeks from this coming weekend. It'll follow the Thompson Icebreaker weekend, scheduled to precede it this weekend, but Mother Nature not helping us out with that. The Friday afternoon practice sessions at Waterford Speed Bowl, as announced by the Speed Bowl, will continue to stay on tap for Friday afternoons. If you want to bring your car down there and practice at Waterford, Waterford has given the go on that one because the weather forecast for tomorrow looks okay. But, Tom, as for the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, a wash here in New England. I know it's like that kind of all around the country, but sad to see the Valenti will have to wait 2 more weeks before they open the season at Waterford.
Yeah, definitely. Already postponed a couple of shows here in the South from Saturday to Sunday as well. It looks like Sunday for us down here is going to turn out okay. So I've seen a couple of notices come across about some of the dirt track shows already backing shows off from Saturday to Sunday. So it's the forecast is looking really bad when they start canceling or postponing shows a couple days early. So unfortunately, Mother Nature's still just continuing to wreak havoc in one form or another with people's plans for sports events. So we'll hope that changes soon, and we'll move right along. Jacob, let's talk a little bit about some K&N Series racing. We've got a couple of drivers from the K&N Series we're going to be hearing from, and one of them got himself a really big win.
Yes, he did, Tom, and I'm really looking forward to this. Was a whale of an interview because this driver's enthusiasm when he took the checkered flag Saturday night was absolutely unbridled. Ben Rhodes out of the Turner Scott Motorsports stable, able to duplicate the feat that his teammate Dylan Kwasniewski did last October, and go to Victory Lane at Greenville Pickens Speedway last Saturday evening. Ben started from pole and proceeded to pretty much dominate the field with his Turner Scott teammates. 150 laps went in the books, and a car owned by Turner Scott Motorsports led every lap. Ben Rhodes proceeded to lead about 3 times as many laps as anybody else in the field, but it was a great show between him, Cameron Haley, and Kaz Gralla, the true rookie in the Turner Scott Motorsports stable. So great battle between those 3 at the front of the field throughout the entire race. Ben leading just over 100 laps, taking his first career K&M Pro Series East win. Just a bright future for this young man. An outstanding drive. He's learned how to manage his equipment, and he's learned how to make the moves when it counts. He's also got 3 straight pole awards, Tom, in the K&M Pro Series East. 21 means 21 pole awards, and as Ben references in the interviews, he said, "I've got to win enough pole awards so my team has a complete set of hats. They're complaining at me now."
Well, I guess that's a reasonable goal to try to achieve. Let's go ahead and check out the interview.
Ben, we talked to you before Greenville, and you were confident going into the weekend. Well, I'd say the confidence certainly meant something. You dominated the event, led basically triple digits in laps, and come home with the victory. You're first in the K&N East Series. Talk about the end of that race and how much this victory means to you to really bring everything full circle over the last 8 months or so.
It means a whole lot. I'm just really happy for the guys. We got the victory. I won 3 poles in a row now, so I'm trying to get all the guys the Coors Light pole hats. That's my goal now. Every time I get one, I'll go set it up in the lounge, and they snatch it up real quick, say, "That's mine." I said, "All right, well, hopefully there's more where that comes from." So it's been good. I know the guys are enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Hopefully we get a few more of these things before the year comes to an end.
Talk about having an impressive setup in qualifying. You guys have been almost impeccable this year. As you said, 3 in a row now. Trying to look up real quick here exactly what the record for consecutive poles is in the K&N East Series, but with the way you're going, I'm sure we'll be hearing about it soon. What has it been about Turner Scott Motorsports and qualifying that you guys have just been so good so far this season?
Well, Mark McFarland, he's an incredible crew chief, and he just gives me an awesome car for qualifying every time. He knows exactly what I need, and we have really good communication. So he knows what I need, when I need it, and I can explain stuff to him, and it all makes sense. And I can do changes based off what I feel. I can tell him, "Hey, we need to pull the rear end back here, or we need more spring in the right front, or this and this." And he knows what to adjust on based off what I'm feeling. I can just describe the car. And it's been really good for this year, and I've calmed down a lot in qualifying too. I used to be a wild child, but I'm much better now. I just kind of calm down and do my best to forget the rest, and it seems to be working so far for us.
Announced just the other day that you and Turner Scott Motorsports are going to be teaming up. You're actually going to be running 5 truck races for the organization this year, starting this weekend at Martinsville. You've been good on the short tracks so far this season. What kind of anticipation and expectations have you got going into this weekend, making your first ever Camping World Truck Series start, and what's going to be the goal for you this weekend?
I try to set realistic goals. I think if we can survive, we should be able to get a top 15. But it is a truck race. I don't really know what to expect going into it because I've never raced with these guys. I only have one test in the truck, but I already feel like I've raced. I'm really comfortable with it now. We practice pit stops and restarts, and I'm extremely comfortable with it. I think we can do really good. I have a veteran crew chief, Mike Hillman Jr. He's awesome. He got 7 poles last year with Jeb Burton in a win. So we got the best of the best working on it, and hopefully I can get him a good finish. I'm going to give it my best shot, and we'll see where we end up. We just got to survive at a place like that, though.
Going into this weekend, I know Martinsville really not a place that you've had much track time on going into this weekend, but from what you know about the place, because it is one of NASCAR's historic tracks, what do you feel like some of the challenges are going to be for you this weekend?
Well, I think the big challenge is, for me anyways, is going to be getting comfortable with the car. I've been there to Martinsville a couple times, and I raced a late model there. So racing a late model there, you have to have your momentum. You have to get through the corner really good. And I think that's going to translate over to these trucks so that you can save your stuff a little bit. You don't want to burn your brakes up. I've been watching a couple of these races from years past, about their pit stops and how these guys are saving tires, what their race strategies are. And I'm just going to try to learn from those guys as much as I can as I watch these videos, and I'm just going to try to apply it the best I can, and we'll see where we end up. I think I got a good strategy planned out already, and I'm going to talk to my crew chief, and he certainly knows how to get them around the place, and I just got to learn from everybody I can, and hopefully it'll be enough for a good finish.
You've got another young gun there alongside you this weekend in your teammate Brandon Jones, but you've also got a veteran on your squad this weekend in the form of Ron Hornaday. What's it going to be like, and how much are you going to be able to utilize his expertise at the short tracks this weekend to help your own truck setup and help you get ready to take on 250 laps on Saturday?
Well, Mr. Ron, I call him Mr. because he's much older than me, much more experienced. He's been racing longer than I've been alive. He certainly knows how to get around the place. He certainly knows how to race a truck. I'm going to rely on him quite a bit to see what I need to feel, as well as my crew chief, what I need to be feeling and where we need to be working on the car at the track to get the most out of it for the race. And, I think talking to him will be a major help. He has so much experience, and if I could just tap into a little bit of that, I think it'll be a big asset for me and for Brandon Jones. Brandon's raced a couple of these things already, but I think we can all learn from Ron. He's been in it for so many years. And if we could just take a little bit of what he knows and apply it to what we're doing, I think we'll be A-okay.
If you're in contention at the end of the race, I know last year we watched your former teammate, Jeb Burton, as a rookie run in the top 5 virtually the entire race and have a shot to win it late. If you're in contention on Saturday, do you settle for a solid finish, or do you take a chance there to try and go for a win if one presents itself to you?
Well, I think it's kind of situational. If I'm a lot faster than the guy in front of me, I'll probably try to move him up the track and with, 10 laps to go and try to pull away from them to justify it. I really don't like using the bumper a whole lot. I'm a clean racer. I don't like touching people. Rogan is racing, and I come from the short track background, but I'm a clean racer and I race people the way I want to be raced. So I'm not going to ever wreck anybody for the win or send them into the wall for the win. If I do anything, it'll just move them up the track a little bit out of their line if I'm faster than them. I'm not going to go 6 car lengths into the corner way too deep, knock them way up the track when they're faster than me just to get the spot from them. That's not how I race. So if the opportunity is right and the situation is right, you might see me use the bumper a little bit, but hopefully we can be in that position. That's an awesome position to be in, and hopefully I'm in that position. I would look forward to that, and I don't think you get any better than being in that position. I don't want to be back in 5th and 6th and 10th place trying to do the same thing. I think that's where you want to be.
And of course, going into this weekend, a big weekend for you, but I know you can't do it alone. As always, got people and supporters to thank, so I'll let you give some shout-outs to all those people who make it happen for Ben Rhodes.
Well, Alpha Energy Solutions has been amazing for us. They're sponsoring our truck this weekend, so they've allowed us to do so much. And without them, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So I have to give a big shout out to Alpha Energy Solutions, as well as the Kentucky National Guard. They have got my 6. I like saying that, guy. They got my 6. You heard that military talk? They got my back for sure. As well as Park Community Credit Union, they've got my back. And Alliance Comfort Systems. They're all great sponsors that make the car and the truck go around. So thanks to them, and I guess I'm ready to go trucking now.
And we're looking forward to see you on track this weekend, Ben. I know you'll take to the track Friday for practice, but the big day is Saturday. Congratulations again on the huge K&N East win, and we look forward to watching you live Saturday afternoon when you take to the track for the Kroger 250 in the Camping World Truck Series. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on again.
And Tom, before we go to commercial, you gotta love the enthusiasm that Ben brings to this weekend. He knows he's not running for points. He knows this is his first time out. He knows it's not going to go perfect, but he is so excited just to have this opportunity and to listen to a young guy who's not so much necessarily worried about the outcome as he is just going out running his race and seeing what happens. That's really refreshing to hear, I think, going into this weekend.
Well, there's no doubt, and that's exactly the way that he needs to approach it, as does Brandon Jones. I mean, anytime that you're doing something for the first time, and particularly with Ben, because you're right, he has so much potential, and really want to applaud him too. He's come a long way with the communications, and I don't know if Jason Buckley's been the reason for that or what, but boy, Ben has really become a very adept speaker for himself, and excited to see that too. He's a terrific kid. He's a clean racer, and he's really matured so much in terms of his race craft since he's been in the bigger cars. I really do believe that both Ben and Brandon will have a chance at the top 10, and I like Ben's future in the sport for sure. So yeah, it definitely is going to be a neat opportunity for him, and a finish, especially if he's got all the fenders on it. A finish is a win for him, and it gives him something to build on going into his next several races. So with that, we will take our first commercial break of the evening. When we come back, we have plenty more. We've got Can-Am West conversation. We've got an interview with Brandon Jones coming up. We've got plenty of talk from the Hickory Motor Speedway, some more stuff from up north, just all kinds of good stuff going on. And we will be back with more of the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show right after this. You are listening to Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
The odds of a young girl being discovered by an industry insider while singing to herself pumping gas? 1 in 300 million. The odds of the daughter of a clergyman from Severn, Maryland spending 11 weeks at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of selling over 40 million records? 1 in 800,000. The odds of this musician and performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Souza around the round table. And we're going to talk some very, very, very mad pavement racing action from over the weekend. Tom, we usually talk about madness being on Monday nights, but we're kind of injecting some madness here onto Thursday nights tonight because the Coma Unwide Modified Madness Series was last Saturday at Hickory Motor Speedway. You had the chance to go out there, and they didn't call it the Modified Madness Series for nothing.
No, there was definitely some madness in a couple of different meanings throughout the evening. First of all, I'll start with this. It was one of the best crowds I've seen at Hickory Motor Speedway in a long time, and I couldn't be happier. because I think it really shows the interest in the modified division. There were 3 classes that were competing. You had the Coma Unwind Modifieds, if you will, the Smart Tour, essentially. And then you had the Southeast Super Truck Series, which I had never seen in competition until Saturday night, and I'll get to that in a moment. Then you had the East Coast Flathead Fords as well. There were about maybe half a dozen or so of them, and they're always fun. You get to see the older cars and older drivers as well, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's start with the modifieds. The modifieds, there were only 17 of them, but it just goes to show that you don't necessarily need a boatload of cars to put on a race. When they dropped the green for the 125 lapper, it was just insane. There were about 6 drivers. You had Burt and Jason Myers. You had Josh Nichols. You had Spencer Davis in the Hillbilly Racing 79. You had Jimmy Zacharias, who came on as the race went on in the 71. And of course, you had Tim Brown in his car. And those guys just swapped the lead back and forth and ran 2 wide, chased each other down. It was unbelievable, the amount of lead changes, passing back and forth, 2 grooves, sometimes 3 grooves. This was one of the best modified races I have seen in many, many, many years. It finally started to shake out as they went past the halfway point. You had Burt Myers and you had Tim Brown up at the front. Spencer Davis made a charge, and it started to get to a point where it got close to lap 100. This is when the madness, the meaning of the word madness, started to change a little bit, Jacob. About lap 94 or so, Josh Nichols dove into the pits, changed the tire, came back out. Then, shortly thereafter, Burt Myers started it on about lap 94. First car in under green, changed the tire, came back out. About lap 100, Josh Nichols does the same thing. Then you started getting the rest of the drivers. Jason Myers went in. I believe he changed the tire. And then when Tim Brown went in, Tim Brown did not change. He did a stop and go. So those 4 drivers had made pit stops. 3 of them changed tires, 2 of them before lap 100. And then it was time for both Zacharias and Spencer Davis to make their pit stops. They made very late race pit stops, and they both jacked up their cars, did not change a tire, did not do anything else except jack them up, let them down, and send the driver back out. Now, the race, the last 10 laps or so of the race went by, and Tim Brown came across the finish line first. And Jacob, this is where it got interesting. Tim Brown did not change a tire. And what happened was that there seemed to be some confusion about what was mandated or not mandated, whether you had to pit at all, whether you had to jack the car, whether you had to change a tire, whatever the situation was. And every driver that I spoke with after the race had a different version of what the rule was. Now, before the race even started, we had a young lady who was representing Coma, who was in our media room, who was there, I believe, if I understood her correctly, for the specific purpose of noting when each car pitted. So I don't know exactly what the situation was, but everybody was, at the end of the race, everybody but the winner was upset. And I think we have Josh Nichols. Jacob, do we have Josh's interview queued up?
We do, as a matter of fact. So let's roll the tape in here.
Here with Josh Nichols, 4th place finisher tonight in the inaugural Coma Unwind Modified Madness event. Josh, great run, great battles early, ran in the top 5 all day long, back and forth. Seems to be some controversy on the pit rules, but good run for 4th.
Thank you. I mean, we did our best. We thought we followed the rules, and like I said, we did everything right. I got to thank Daryl and Nicky Jones and Jones Automotive and Tire. They took a chance on me, let me drive this thing, and this car is awesome. It's the best stuff I've ever driven. And as far as I'm concerned, we can lay down tonight and go to bed knowing that we played by the rules and did 100% everything legit. And I think we won the race, or at least finished second, not fourth. But we'll just we'll take what they give us. And like I said, I can't thank my guys enough. And it is what it is.
Other than the controversy, what a great race! It must have been fun from the driver's seat for sure.
I mean, it was fun. We mapped out a plan earlier on, and me and the guys, and we just. Our plan that we had, we didn't get to do because the cautions didn't fall right, and so we were forced to pit, and which was okay. Guys did an awesome job on the pit stop, and I really honestly thought we won the race, and but it's one of those deals. You just you take what they can give you.
I know they're calling you to tech, Josh. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Tom. I gather a little bit out of that, but what I really gather out of all that is I'm still really confused.
Well, so was I, and so was about everybody else, because Burt Myers, I wasn't able to get Burt on tape, but Burt, who got interviewed right after Josh did on the PA system, had the same complaint that Josh had about, well, we did it right, but, the two guys in front of me, well, they did. And so it appeared that both Josh and Burt Myers thought that you were not supposed to pit after lap 100. You were supposed to pit before lap 100 if you were going to change a tire. Now, note that I mentioned that Nichols was fourth as of the time they crossed the finish line. Things changed a little bit later on. We'll get to that in a minute. For Exhibit B on this madness, let's go to the winner view and listen to what our race winner, Tim Brown, had to say in Victory Lane when I talked to him about the pit rule.
Standing in Victory Lane at Hickory after the inaugural Coma Unwind Modified Madness 125 with the winner, Tim Brown. Tim, that was a heck of a run. A lot of controversy about the pit stops and all of that, but boy, you sure made it look good.
Yeah, the race car was great tonight, and I don't really understand the controversy there. We didn't put a tire on. We just came to a stop and go, and all it says is you have to come to a stop and go. You can't change a tire, and we didn't change a tire. So I don't understand the deal, but they'll work it out. They'll figure it out and make it better for the future. I'm just, blessed to have a great race team and great sponsors, Hayes Jewelers, Raymock Racing Engines, Mobile One, all the people that contribute to this deal, and Tom and Connie are great car owners, and Hickory a great racetrack, and Brian Weber. Thank Brian Weber for all that he does to put this new deal on. It's just awesome, and it's a learning curve. Like this team, the tour they'll fix the little bumps in the roads there, but the thing is I didn't understand those guys pitting under green, because you're going to lose more than one lap. So yeah, if the caution comes out and you get the lucky dog, you're still 2 laps down if those guys were 3 laps down after pitting under green. So I don't quite understand that, but all I know is we played by the rules. We didn't change the tire. We came and done our stop and go and come back out, and we won the race. So great race car. We didn't put tires on, and won 125 laps green, and won this thing, and just blessed. Like it's just a great way to start the season with this deal.
I was amazed at the amount of passing and racing back and forth. I mean, you guys, there were about 6 of you that were just back and forth, 2 wide all day long, and really put on a show here at Hickory using both grooves. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, the thing is this racetrack's very abrasive, and these tires are soft, and a lot of guys are I was in tire conserving mode there for a while, and then like at lap 65 or so, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go see what we got, because we're getting ready to get a caution at lap 90, and I know what to adjust on. So I went up there a little bit, and messed with Burt, and his car was good. So I was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to work on it to beat him. And then he started getting a little bit free off, so I went ahead and passed him and was just running my line. And they come on the radio and said, Burt's pitting under green, and he's coming out right in front of you. And I was like, he pitted under green. He's got to go a couple laps down, and I knew the lucky dog was only one. So I was like, okay, well, when the caution comes out, we'll get our tires and we'll go back racing, and we should be fine. So great race car, and then the way it worked out, I don't know if some teams realized you didn't have to stop, and they didn't stop. I don't know how it shook out. I just know we had a great race car, and we're in victory lane. That's all I care about.
And what are your plans for the rest of 2014, Tim?
We're going to chase a championship on this Coma Tour deal here and try to go get our 10th championship at Bowman Gray Stadium.
Well, congratulations on a big win here, the first Coma Unwind Modified Madness 125 at Hickory Motor Speedway, and good luck the rest of the way. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
Okay, so let's recap. What we know is everybody was confused about the tire rule and the pit stop rule and the whole everything, and Tim Brown won the race, and Tim Brown kept the win. That's pretty much what we know. Am I following you right?
Well, and take note that Tim Brown did not specify taking on a tire and did not specify pitting before lap 100. In fact, he was confused why a couple of the drivers actually pitted under green and thinking that, well, my gosh, you've got to lose laps or whatever. And so it was just crazy. And when I talked with Spencer Davis after the event, he told me that he and Jimmy Zacharias were both told on the radio during the race and after the other guys made a pit stop that they had to at least jack up the car. That's why they did that when they pitted, and they were the last two of the leaders to pit. So it was crazy. They originally credited Spencer with 8th and Josh Nichols with, but then they did the finish sheet later on in the final finishing order. It was Tim Brown taking the win. It was Jason Myers second, Burt Myers third, Spencer Davis fourth, and Nichols fifth. And what a crazy, crazy race it was. But I got to tell you, it was a fantastic race, and nobody knows better than I do from having a lot of experience in working with different series, and especially when something is new. Communication is critical, and it's so easy to be gray or maybe to not be right, clear with communication. So I got to give the Coma folks the benefit of the doubt here. I tried to talk with a couple of the race officials after the race. They were absolutely inundated with angry team members from various teams, and I just said, you know what, I'm not going anywhere near that. But I'm sure they'll have it straight by their next series race, and I think this is going to be, Jacob, a whale of a series. I hope all these guys will give them a second chance and not, get angry and stop racing with them, because this series has the chance to be something pretty special, I think.
I think it does, and modified racing, while it may be a little bit on the decline up north, here in the south, it is just booming. The popularity of these modifieds just continues to grow and grow, and I'm really excited. I'm hoping I can be available for one of the Coma Tour races this season, because from what I've heard from you about this first one, I need to be in attendance for one, because it's going to be wild and it's going to be crazy, and you know how much I like wild and crazy.
Yeah, no doubt, and it was definitely wild and crazy. It was a great race to watch. The drivers all just really put on a heck of a show for the fans, and the fans responded to it. So it was a great first race, and first time I had a chance to try the Coma Unwind product as well. They were handing out free cases after the races were over, and I grabbed one and have used it for the last 3 days. And if you don't know what Coma Unwind is, it's basically a relaxation drink. It's kind of a soda, but it has melatonin in it and some other things. No caffeine, obviously. It's meant to make you drowsy and relax you enough to let you fall asleep. And I got to tell you, I've used it for the last 3 nights, and it really does what it says it does. And it seems safe and it actually has a nice taste to it, I think. So kind of impressed with that. But I hope the Coma folks can get things figured out for the next race, because boy, if you take the controversy away, just the racing itself, I would buy that video and watch it over and over. It was that good a race. Now, we're going to, Jacob, before we go off to break here, I want to just give you a thought to think about with regard to the Southeast Super Truck portion, think about one driver coming from the back of the field to the top 5. Think about one driver battling to the finish for second, and one driver fighting for the lead, swapping back and forth until the last 20 laps when he was able to pull away. And think about 2 of these drivers being related. And that's where we go. That's where we'll go when we talk Southeast Super Trucks here a little later on.
It sounds fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this because, it's always fun to hear about things that I wasn't actually able to get to watch or to go to, whatever it is. But as we head to commercial, I want to once again pay tribute to our fallen comrades here as we get set to go to break, Tom. One of your fallen colleagues, as well as... 2 very good friends to the NASCAR community, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Bobby Waltrip and Linda Petty. Just a very, very tough week for the world of NASCAR once again. And as we go to break, I want to pay tribute to both of them. First to Bobby Waltrip, who we lost on Sunday night. We heard about it via Twitter, and want to send our condolences to the Waltrip family. The funeral was today, Tom. I know you were there, and as you said, very beautiful service and just a long week. Bobby Waltrip passed away, and he was 60 years old. And also to the Petty family and the entire Richard Petty Motorsports operation, we send our condolences to you guys as well on the loss of the matriarch of the Petty family, Linda Petty, who passed away Tuesday night after a long battle with lymphoma and complications from cancer. One of the strongest women in the NASCAR garage area, and both of these figures will truly be missed. Linda Petty was 72 years old, and we'll be right back here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a Motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
For every turn, a twist. For every start, an untimely finish. For every win, someone who loses it. For every number, a nation. For every celebration, a brawl. For every split second, years of work. For every heaven, a hell. For every good old boy, a good old girl. For every curse, a prayer. For every ounce of order, a jug of chaos. For every twist, there's a turn.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Souza here in studio as we talk all things in the pavement short track world, from late models to modifieds to the regional Stock Car Touring Series with ARCA, K&M Pro Series East and West, and much, much more. And Tom, a little bit different note for us on tonight's show, but definitely want to cover it since you saw it while you were at Hickory over the past weekend. The Southeast Super Truck Series race put on a whale of a show from what I understand.
Yeah, they really did. And I got to tell you, this is, we don't always get down into kind of the local touring series or whatever, but I'm happy to and proud to this time, because the Southeast Super Truck Series, they had a good field of trucks, nearly 20 trucks on hand. And I got to tell you, it was a 75-lap race. Randy Porter, Kevin Light, and Kenny Heaton all battled for the lead on and off through the first 50 laps or so. And again, just some hard rubbing, racing, swapping spots back and forth. Jeff Caldwell also in the hunt. And Lee Tissett, who's known more for his late model racing than anything else. Lee was coming strong as well, and both Jeff and Lee had issues, but problems that shortened their day. Randy was able to pull away in the last 20 laps. But I got to tell you, Kevin Light and Heaton put on a show for second place. Again, both grooves, inside, outside, rubbing, and it was fun to watch before finally Kevin Light ended up with the spot. Tim Lawless finished fourth in the event, and Matt Light came from the back of the field, about 16th spot, I think, and ended up fifth. And just watching him drive through the field methodically as the race wore on was a show in and of itself. So there was a lot of good racing in this series. And again, I had never seen him run, but they really put on a show. And first, we've got two interviews for you from this race. First, let's hear from our second place finisher, Kevin Light. All right, down on the track at Hickory Motor Speedway with second place finisher Kevin Light. Kevin, you had a fantastic run, and that was quite a battle at the end with the 33 truck, too.
Yeah, the motor went flat with about 10 to go. I was running border down there. Just once it went flat, we was pretty much trying to hang on to second. Almost lost that there with one to go, but I want to thank Kenneth and them for running me clean, and and also Randy. Me and him raced side by side for the first 25 laps. I had an absolute blast racing with these guys, and that's what we're supposed to do: is come here and have a good time and battle and bump and rub and everybody walk away shaking hands.
This is the first time I've had a chance to see this series. Looks like it's a heck of a show. At least it was tonight.
Yeah, it's absolutely good. It's a great series. I would recommend it to anyone that wants to get into racing, especially for the money. You're not going to beat it, and it's competitive. I mean, you got people like Randy Porter that's won everywhere. I mean, just anything he's ever said, and he's won in. And Kenneth the same way. I mean, he's won championships at multi-tracks, and a very good driver. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Kevin, congratulations on a fine second place run.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
That's Kevin Light, second place finisher in the Southern Super Truck Series event at Hickory.
So there's P2, Tom, but the story, as it is all the time at the end of these races, is P1, and I know you heard from him, too, here along the line.
We did. I was able to get an interview with Randy Porter. Actually, the last one to interview him, I waited for everybody else to get through and almost didn't get it snuck in there before they wanted him off the track to go to Tech and get the modified feature underway. But I did get the winner, Randy Porter, and here it is.
Randy Porter, congratulations on an absolutely outstanding run. You had a great battle with Kevin Light early on and then had to hold them all back. Talk about that just a bit.
Yeah, it was a great run. The truck stayed the same the whole race, was fast the whole race, fast in practice when we unloaded. I mean, it's just one of those weekends that you hope you have every week, but very seldom do. And the battle with him, it was tough. I was afraid I was going to wear the right front out or build too much air pressure battling him on the bottom like that. I knew if I could get by, maybe I could use the whole track and put a little distance, but he's tough. He's always tough here, and so was Kenneth. And I don't know what happened to Lee Tissett, but he was coming, so it would have probably been a much closer race if Lee hadn't fell out.
Congratulations on a great run.
Thank you.
That's Randy Porter, tonight's feature winner in the Southern Super Truck Series.
All right, Tom, so I think we've heard just about everything that we've been able to talk about from Hickory, but I know there was one more division that we want to sneak in there real quick to give them some credit here because they did race on Saturday night as well.
Well, I wanted to mention just real quick, the East Coast Flathead Ford's came to Hickory, and it's always fun with the old cars to watch them drive around. But that isn't what I want to mention. The winner of the event was his first time ever at Hickory, which I thought was really cool. And he really had a ball. And then the second place finisher, which was Johnny Johnson, was 73 years old. I mean, these are older guys that they have these old, flathead Fords, and they bring them in. It's almost like an exhibition race, but these guys do have fun, and they work hard at it, and just enjoy getting out and meeting the people. And I just thought it was really fun to sort of revisit history with those guys. So congratulations to the East Coast Flathead guys for putting on a good show as well. It was a very enjoyable night of racing. Despite the controversy, and even in a sense, Jacob, you know how it is, because of the controversy, it always adds a little spice to the action when you have something like that. But I'm sure that the folks from Como will get it fixed and go on to race number 2 in the series, and it'll be fine. But certainly a lot of fun at Hickory, and thanks to Kevin Piercy and his staff for their hospitality, and all the folks from Como and Wand as well on Saturday night.
It sounds like it was a fun show, and I can hope to be around for the next one. But Tom, with that, we are going to take a caution flag here on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show. And when we come back, we are going to wrap up all the rest of the weekend's racing action. We're going to talk the ARCA Racing Series from Alabama. We're going to talk the Southern Super Series from Alabama. We're going to talk the K&M Pro Series West, and you know what? Still to come, we've also got a preview for this weekend's truck race at Martinsville Speedway, courtesy of another Turner Scott Motorsports driver who I'm going to have a chance to sit down with via the Race Chaser Speed 77 phone line. Brandon Jones is yet to appear here on tonight's show, and that's coming up as we move on in the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
Let me drive.
How do you know when it's time to give up the keys? When your dog grabs your keys from your lap and your lap is on the floor. Yep, it's Jeff Foxworthy for RAD saying, when you party, be sure to designate before you celebrate.
If you want to make it home alive, let me drive.
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Please don't drink and drive. It's not fun.
Hi, this is Jamie McMurray here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. Want to make a difference? It's simple. Be responsible. Plan ahead. Designate before you celebrate. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star.
A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Tom Baker, Kyle Souza, and Jacob Seelman here around the round table. And Tom, as we come back to the show, we'll move away from Hickory and move to Southern Alabama for a pair of races that took place over the weekend on the pavement down in the Mid-South. And we're going to start with the ARCA Racing Series event from Saturday afternoon at Mobile International Speedway. And the reason I want to talk about this one is definitely because it involves some of the rising stars that we're going to be hearing about for years to come, but also because it's in close proximity to another short track race that happened over the weekend also in southern Alabama. But how about Grant Enfinger taking the victory in the ARCA Mobile 200 for the second year in a row, his last 5 ARCA starts, and he equals a mark set in 1990 by Jimmy Horton to win the first 2 races of the season. And this is a guy who originally wasn't even scheduled to run the full season. He's leading the points by 50 points over Frank Kimmel going into race 3 at Salem.
Yeah, boy, you gotta start thinking championship for this young man, don't you?
You've got to, and we call Grant Enfinger a young man. He's in his mid-20s now, so I guess that almost makes him one of the elder statesmen. This is true. I guess you almost call him one of the elder statesmen of the ARCA series, save for maybe a Frank Kimmel or a couple of those other guys, but just a great run. And, he held off some of the very, very best young talents and older talents of the ARCA Racing Series. Frank Kimmel was up in the mix the entire race. He extends a streak of 33 straight top 10 finishes, and that's hard to do in any series of motorsports. But Enfinger held off young Kyle Benjamin for the victory, and I have been intently watching Kyle Benjamin over the last couple of months, not just because he's been behind the wheel of just about anything you can drive on a short track, but because he just signed, along with young Kyle Weatherman, to the Rulo Brothers Racing Ford team in the ARCA Racing Series, and as a development driver for Roush Fenway Racing. And we have watched some really good young talents come up through the ranks. Most recently, I think Trevor Bain comes to mind out of the Roush Fenway development ranks. But these 2 Kyles, both Benjamin and Weatherman, are going to be really strong for a long time to come, I think. And it's going to be great, I think, to watch them. Kyle Benjamin had a shot at that win, but had to settle for second at the end.
Yeah, definitely interesting that Kyle Benjamin actually had an opportunity to run both the Rattler and the ARCA race and chose to run the ARCA race, darn near pulled off the win. Kyle's another one of these young drivers that you just know is one step away from really hitting his stride, and when he does, I think he's going to end up in Sprint Cup at some point very soon.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And, we talk about young guys. Kyle Benjamin not electing to go back and run the Rattler that same night. But I want to talk about a guy who did go back and run the Rattler and actually finished in the top 5 in the ARCA race as well, and that's young Anderson Bowen. And Bowen, another one of the guys that we've had on recently in the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show, and this is another young man who's working his way up out of the pro late model and super late model ranks and into an ARCA car for Cunningham Motorsports, and he's done remarkably well. As I said, finished top 5 in the ARCA race at Mobile, and then he went to the Rattler 250 at South Alabama Speedway, started mid-pack closer to the back, and came forward and got another top 5. It's been a long time since I've seen a driver, 2 different racetracks within about a 6-hour proximity as far as the green flags for both races, and he wins top 5s in both events. Very, very impressive run by young Anderson Bowen in both events, the super late model event for the Rattler and the ARCA car as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit, and you set that up beautifully. Here's a guy who, again, has a chance to run 2 events, and we might add that this is because the Rattler was rained out from the week before, so it set up a scenario where you had 2 conflicting events near enough to each other to, in theory, be able to get there in time. And boy, talk about cutting it close. Anderson Bowen decides to do the double. Kyle Benjamin opts not to. Anderson decides to and goes ahead and runs top 5 in both shows. That's a racer. And attaboy for Anderson Bowen, because that's not easy to do, and especially with the length of distance between them, to be able to make it and be mentally focused enough to run both races. We talk a lot about the whole Indy 500 Charlotte double, and of course those races much longer, but nonetheless, Still tough to do two in one day in two different cars, and Anderson Bowen pulled it off beautifully, I thought.
Yeah, he did. 500 laps worth of racing for him in a span of about 8 hours. A great job by that young man out of Sewanee, Georgia, and I think great things ahead for him as well, Tom. There's just so much great young talent in these short track divisions that I think we're going to be talking about here in the next couple of years because they're all looking like they're going to go places, and it's just so much fun to watch them. And we talk about talents going places, and every once in a while there's a talent that falls off the map a little while, and just when you think you've not heard anything and maybe he's disappeared on us, this driver, who actually won the 38th Rattler 250, had a way of surprising us and saying, hey, you forget about me? Because I'm still here. Casey Roderick survived after the front runners all, it seemed, Ross Kenseth, Bubba Pollard, Daniel Hemrick, all these guys have problems during the race. Daniel was in position late in the race till his engine blew up. Kenseth and I believe it was Pollard got together while they were racing for the lead, 1 and 2, and all the while Casey Roderick's just kind of hanging back in the top 5, just running his race, and next thing you know, he's the race leader, and he says, sayonara, boys, I'm going to win this thing. And he pulled away from the field over the final 50 laps and did take home his first ever Southern Super Series triumph and his first win in the Rattler 250. Big win for Casey Roderick. Tom, I think we remember him most coming out of the Bill Elliott driver development program a couple years ago, but Casey showing he still knows how to get it done.
Oh, I remember Casey long before that. I remember when he was racing Legends cars, and of course Casey's a Georgia boy, and boy, he was fantastic in the Legends. And there again, the Bill Elliott development deal too. He had running some late model stuff and such, and there was no doubt that Casey had the talent and was a potential to go very far. But of course, a lot of the sport does depend on financial backing, and for whatever reason, Casey, though he's had several starts in the Nationwide Series and such, just has never been able to come up with that magic combination of dollars and cents and the right opportunity. And so to see him start in the back of the field, and you and I talked when we went through the lineup before the race, you and I talked about the fact that, here's a kid who hasn't really done a whole lot of racing lately, and I wasn't sure he'd ever made a start in the Sunoco Southern Super Series, and what an event he picks to start in. It just goes to show the fastest driver doesn't always win. He was able to drive smart and just stay clean, and at the end of the race to get it done. And so congratulations to Casey Roderick, and hopefully that might shake something out of the trees for him, because here again, this is a kid who definitely belongs in the Nationwide Series, I think, and just like to see him get that good opportunity and get a good sponsor to carry him through. He's a very marketable young man, very humble young man as well. And Casey definitely deserves an opportunity in a good piece of equipment to show what he can do. So hopefully this will at least do a little bit to help his cause.
Fully in agreement there, Tom. Again, as you said, this is a great young man, very humble young man, and I want to allude to the saying that you just mentioned, that it's not the fastest driver who always wins the race, but it is always the driver who puts together the most complete race. And that's exactly what Casey Roderick did to win on Saturday evening. Congratulations to him for picking up his first ever Southern Super Series win. And while we're on the subject of first-time winners, there is one more short track race that we need to get to before we take a caution flag, and that is the K&M Pro Series West event from Irwindale, California. And that was a race that was punctuated by several drivers taking turns at the front, and it was punctuated by tire strategy. Started off with Brandon McReynolds on the pole, and it moved as the middle of the race wore on to McReynolds falling back, and Brett Thompson, a series veteran who has paid his dues many times over to the NASCAR community, taking the lead and looking like maybe he was going to squeak a win out at Irwindale Speedway. Just a valiant drive by that whole 61 team. I was very impressed by it. Thompson ends up fallen back late in the race as some other guys come forward, and we expected it was going to be the veterans. David Mayhew, Greg Pursley, Brandon McReynolds, who had saved their equipment. They were working their way back to the front, and we thought it was going to be them who would take the victory. As it was a rookie making just his 7th ever K&M Pro Series start. And oh, by the way, not only did he inherit his ride last year by winning the Peak Stock Car Dream Challenge, he's also a Harvard student. Tom, Patrick Staropoli wins the K&M Pro Series West at Irwindale. I was partially floored and partially thrilled for this young man who has worked to prove that he has absolutely got what it takes in a stock car, and prove that he didn't just luck into this opportunity. He has earned it. And I don't know if you say one win validates an entire opportunity, but it certainly goes a long way to helping.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and I'll be the first to say I was not necessarily thinking that the folks at the Peak Challenge necessarily made the right choice when they went with Patrick, but I've got to eat a little crow here, and I'm happy to do it because it's always nice to see a young man get his first win at a high level, and Patrick has had a late model experience in the past, certainly capable of wheeling a car. The biggest thing about Patrick that stands out is his marketing ability and his way with a microphone and with a camera. I mean, he's a good speaker. He's a pre-med student at Harvard. This is a young man who certainly did validate the fact, okay, look, I got myself a K&N Pro Series West win, so there, all of you doubters, just quiet down, and I'll be the first to go on record as saying I was among the doubters. And now, certainly, he struggled a little bit more in the K&N Pro Series East, so we'll see if this win can help him with some momentum to carry him forward on the East side of things. But certainly a good race win, and again, it's all about being there at the end, and several drivers had issues, and he did a great job to survive and to be there when it counted. The only lap you have to lead, Jacob, is the last one, and so congratulations to Patrick Staropoli on getting his first K&M Pro Series West win. That had to be a thrill for him, and I'm very happy to say that Patrick, I think I judged you a little bit too soon. So I hope he goes on a win streak now and really proves me wrong. So I'm always happy when somebody young like that steps out and does something remarkable, and that's a good win, and a good win as well for the Peak Stock Car Challenge as well.
Yeah, it really was, and congratulations to Patrick Staropoli. And let's not forget, just because he has struggled a little bit in the K&M Pro Series East this season, he's still got 2 top 10 finishes in 3 starts, which is better than some of the K&M Pro Series East veterans this season who have struggled even more than he has. So I would feel that maybe if he runs a couple more of these East races this season, that it's not going to be out of the question to see him potentially contending and maybe even snag an East win before the end of the season. As they say in this sport, momentum is king, but right now Patrick Staropoli going to ride that momentum all the way to the K&M Pro Series West's next stop at Stockton 99 Speedway on the outset of May, the next time the K&M West cars are going to race. So congratulations to him. He gets to savor this one for a little while. And with that, we are going to go to one more caution flag here on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show. We're going to take a 15-second pause for station identification. And Tom, Kyle, when we come back, we're going to hear from a driver who is making his second Truck Series start at Martinsville this weekend, his first truck start of 2014, and he's not the true rookie of the Turner Scott Motorsports stable anymore. We're going to hear from Brandon Jones, who tackles Martinsville this weekend and gives us an outlook on what it's going to take to go to victory lane in the Kroger 250. That's next. After this, you're listening to Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show here on Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Souza around the round table tonight. And Tom, as we get set to wrap up our show tonight, we still got one more driver interview to hear from, and as we mentioned just before the pause, that is Brandon Jones out of the Turner Scott Motorsports stable. We heard from his teammate Ben Rhodes earlier tonight, and now we're going to move to Brandon, who has a little bit more experience than his Kentucky counterpart going into this weekend's truck race, but it's still the first truck start of the 2014 season for him, and this is another one of those guys who's worked his way out of the late models, has worked his way into a good top-flight development program, and Turner Scott Motorsports, I think, is going to really see some dividends pay with him this year. He's run very, very well in the K&M Pro Series East so far for them, and I feel like some of that, at least, is going to translate over to this truck start for him this weekend, but 250 laps around Martinsville is not easy.
No, it's definitely not. I'm sure it's a workout. I mean, I can't speak from personal experience, but it is definitely a challenge, especially your first time that you do something like this. It's the first time jitters. You're really, you want to perform well. You want to please your team owners and your crew chief and all of the fans. You want to justify the reason that you're there. And Brandon certainly is capable. As we mentioned earlier, Turner Scott has just got a really, really good group of young talent there. I want to personally just take 2 seconds of this show to give a nod to Kaz Gralla, too, for leading the laps that he did in the K&N race. And Kaz is coming a long way in a short time, and he's going to be chasing these guys in the Turner Scott stable for wins quite often, I think, as we go through the rest of the year, Jacob.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think Kaz has proven that this K&N East ride, while it is a learning curve for him, I think he's proving that he is learning every time out on the racetrack, because I've seen him improve, and I didn't expect him to lead the laps he did at Greenville, but I was very, very impressed by the fact that he did, and he was right up there with his teammates, Cameron Haley and the eventual winner, Ben Rhodes. I'm just surprised. Cameron's been so close this season, too. Don't know how he's just not quite caught that one break he needs to put it in victory lane. But I know as soon as they can get that floodgate open, I know they're going to be knocking on the door of wins every single week. So that whole stable, I think, is just going to be impressive. But as far as for Martinsville this weekend, we're going to head over to the Speed 77 Race Chaser phone lines and talk with Brandon Jones, who will give us a preview on this weekend's event at Martinsville and his chances at maybe nabbing a top-notch finish. Jacob Seelman for Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com, sitting now with Brandon Jones as we get set for this weekend's Kroger 250 for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series at Martinsville. And Brandon, we had you on the show a couple weeks ago to talk about your K&M Pro Series start to the 2014 season, and now all of a sudden we've gotten to the short tracks and the Truck Series season for you is upon us. You're making your second start at Martinsville this weekend. What's it going to be like for you going back knowing you've got more truck races on your plate this season, but also coming back to start your year in the truck at a place where you've been before and have some of that track time?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me back on the show. Really looking forward to it today. I think it's going to be way different. We're all going to have a lot of confidence. Like you said, we raced it last year, so we're all going to know what to expect, I think, and have a lot of confidence going into it. And the K&N East Series this year, we ran a lot of flat tracks, actually, so far. So, I think we're prepared on that side, and just got to be ready for a little bit of competition.
What's the toughest part of coming to Martinsville, where there's not a lot of room, but there's usually a lot of tempers involved as you get further and further in the race? What's one of the toughest things you have to fight over the course of the 250 laps this weekend?
Yeah, definitely. Just probably keeping the nose clean and keeping all the fenders not dented up and everything is going to be the key. Using patience and taking all the chances you can get, for sure. You got to stay focused in this race. You slip up one time, you'll get freight trained, and you get put on the outside, and it's not what you want, obviously, at Martinsville. So, you just got to stay focused and just keep watching for gaps to open up, and hopefully you're not the gap.
I know you've done a little bit of testing, but your last competitive Truck Series race was towards the end of last year. How tough is it getting back behind the wheel for the first time in a truck in 4 or 5 months and trying to get back up to speed with not a ton of practice time this weekend?
Yeah, it'll be a little tougher. A couple of weeks ago we went in to Motor Mile and tested the truck, so at least we got back in the seat a little bit this year, preparing for Martinsville, and so I think it shouldn't be too bad. I've been running that K&N car, and it's got a little bit different compound, so that was a little bit different to get used to with the radial on the truck. But I think we use the first practice to get used to the track again and start working on the setup.
You and your teammate Ben Rhodes this weekend are going to be the young guns on the Turner Scott stable, but you've got two guys in Ron Hornaday and Ben Kennedy who have been around the block at least a time or two. Ben, of course, running for his first Truck Series championship, but he's been around the block in the K&N East car at some of these flat tracks and been around the block at Martinsville. For you this weekend, how much is that support of your teammates going to be to lean on as far as getting the truck right for the race on Saturday?
It'll be huge, and like you said, having Ron Hornaday and Ben Kennedy on the team, this weekend's going to be really big. Ben's ran a lot of races last year and a full season this year, so he's had a lot to go off of and a lot of experience already in the truck, so a lot to gain off him and definitely a lot to gain off Ron. He can help you with anything. He's been doing it for a very long time. Obviously everybody knows Ron, so I think I can gain a lot of experience off of all three of them. Honestly, I've talked to Ben a little bit for the K&N East side of it, and he's helped me a little bit there, so I've run a few more races than he has, but he was just as fast as us has the test, like a couple of weeks ago, so all four trucks I think will be really competitive.
How much of the driving style and how you drive these race cars does translate over from the K&N East cars to the trucks?
K&N is a pretty aggressive series. I feel you gotta really race for it. So that'll be like Martinsville definitely when it comes down to the last few laps. I think these guys will have a little more patience in the beginning, but at the last few they'll start moving them out of the way.
And you mentioned those last few laps. If you're up there in contention in those final few laps, what do you have to do to ensure that you end up with a top finish? Because as you've alluded to already, it's going to get wild, and we all know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Definitely, I feel like if you have a 10th place truck, and just try to finish 10th and don't try to get any more out of it, unless an opportunity opens up, obviously, if someone gets moved out of the way and you can get under them pretty easy there. But, just not trying to turn a truck better than what it is, at the end, and trying to wreck it for, last place finish there. So, I think that'll be the main key. Just like I said, staying calm through the whole thing and just taking what it's going to give you there.
And I know you can't do it alone, as always, got the people and supporters behind you that help make it happen. So I'll let you give some shout-outs to those people. Who makes it happen for Brandon Jones?
Yeah, definitely. This weekend we're going to have Exide on the truck. Really looking forward to them having on for Martinsville this weekend. And definitely the whole TSM crew. They've worked their butts off already this whole season, and I feel like we got a few different guys on the team this year, and I feel like I've been with them already for years. So that's always a good thing. And so just got to thank everybody at Turner Scott Motorsports, Shane Huffman, Eddie, everybody on the team. They've, like I said, they worked their butts off, so hopefully we'll make it happen for them this weekend.
And he'll be looking to make it happen in his second truck start at Martinsville. Brandon, we appreciate you coming on the show once again and wish you all the best as you head to the paperclip this weekend, Martinsville, for the Kroger 250.
Thank you so much, man. Hopefully we can get back on here and talk about a win.
Tom and Kyle, I want to turn to both of you about this truck race on Saturday, but Tom, I'll start with you. You want to talk about an organization that I think is going to have 4 trucks that are completely capable of finishing in the top 10 and maybe even have 2 or 3, if not all 4 of them, fighting for a spot in the top 5. We've talked about them all night, but Turner Scott Motorsports has just built an incredible roster for this weekend. You've got Ben Rhodes with a ton of momentum. You've got Brandon Jones, who has the experience from last fall to back him up and knows now what he needs to make this truck perform on these short tracks, and I think has learned something from his K&N East starts this season as well. And then you've got Ben Kennedy, who has been around the block in the K&N Pro Series East. He's made enough of these truck starts to know what he wants, and of course, you can't forget him, the veteran, four-time truck champion Ron Hornaday back with Turner Scott Motorsports for this event at Martinsville, and potentially more races pending the finish on Saturday, and some sponsorship things that I've heard they're working on. They want to keep Ron in that truck for a full season if they can make it work out. But just an incredible weekend, I think, that Turner Scott Motorsports has got lined up, and I would not at all be surprised to see one of these guys end up in victory lane.
No, I wouldn't either. And in fact, I would think that Hornaday would have a good shot at victory this weekend, but don't underestimate Ben Kennedy, and I'm glad you mentioned him, because we've been focusing so much on the K&N Pro Series East drivers that we really haven't talked about Ben too much, and Ben is doing a great job, and I think this is a race that Ben could be a factor in, and in fact, I think we could see at least two, if not three, and maybe all of the Turner Scott trucks in the top 10 at the end of this one, Kyle.
Tom, I completely agree, and as we take a look at the entry list for this weekend, this young talent goes more than just this team. I mean, we've got Darrell Wallace Jr., who is not really a young talent to most of us, but Darrell won this race last year. This field is stacked with trucks that are going to be, I almost said cars there for a minute. It's that exciting. These trucks are stacked. This race, especially this weekend at Martinsville, this is really one of those tracks, guys, where the youngsters can shine if they're in the right equipment. And Rhodes, these guys are in the right equipment to come along. Not only with Hornaday as their teammate, Ron's won a lot of races, not only at Martinsville, but in the Cup Truck Series itself. He's won in various other series at Martinsville as well. Hornaday is going to be the one that's going to be able to push these guys to the limit this weekend, not only as a teammate, but as a competitor. And Tom, you're right. I wouldn't expect these guys to be right up there contending for the win right at the start of the race, but the longer the race goes, the more these guys are going to get stacked up towards the front, and they will be there before it finishes on Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely. I really think that this is an organization that's poised to take a giant step forward here over the course of this season between the Truck Series and also the K&M Pro East Series. And the truck race on Saturday, Martinsville's always a fun race. So much competition, as you said, Kyle. And Jacob, this is one of those races, a lot of people talk about this actually being a more enjoyable race to watch at Martinsville than a lot of the Cup races are there. And you know what? As much as I love Sprint Cup, I have to say, a lot of times it turns out to be just that.
Oh, absolutely. These trucks put on an incredible show at the short tracks, and I've been a proponent of put these trucks back on more of the short tracks ever since they started bringing some of them back. I love the trucks on the short tracks. It's where they started. It's where I feel like they need to get back to. But Kyle, too, was talking about some of the young talent, and one of those talents specifically in a Turner Scott Motorsports truck last year, who is not in one this year, and the guy he wrecked who wasn't in a Turner Scott Motorsports truck last year is now this year, and that's the curious case of Jeb Burton and Ron Hornaday. Burton, of course, the whole sponsorship debacle with Turner Scott there just before the start of the season shifted him over to ThorSport Racing. Burton going to be behind the wheel of number 13 this weekend at Martinsville, and Hornaday going to be in a Turner Scott truck, at least this weekend at Martinsville. So, you know, we talk about curious cases, but that's one where the reversal of roles is just purely ironic. But Kyle talked about some of the young talent, and I could go on, but just a few more of the names. You know, we talked about Darrell Wallace Jr., who won the race in October. You know, Jeb Burton, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick. This field is stacked full. Eric Jones going to be behind the wheel of a truck this weekend. I don't know if you can pick one of these young guys because they're all going to be up in the mix trying to battle for the win. It's going to be a great show, I feel like, Tom, and I know this is hard to do, but if you had to pick somebody, if I looked at you and said, name your driver who you think's going to end up with the grandfather clock on Saturday, who would you pick and why?
Well, you mentioned him, and as much as we've talked about the Turner Scott trucks, and as much as I'd like to say that I would pick one of them, I'm going to go with Bubba Wallace. I really think that he's poised for a victory, and Martinsville is the kind of track that Darrell Wallace likes. I mean, it's Rubbins racing. He's not afraid to mix it up, and this is one of those races where you look at somebody with his driving style and you say, you know what, he's tailor-made for this. So I do think Hornaday is definitely going to be in the mix, but I like Darrell Wallace Jr. to get the victory on Saturday, and it should be a great race. Kyle, who's your pick for the Truck Series victor on Saturday?
Well, Tom, somebody we haven't mentioned, I think, is going to take that grandfather clock, Timothy Peters. Current Truck Series points leader, been strong, not only at Martinsville, but anywhere the Truck Series goes. It's going to be great this Saturday, but I do think Timothy Peters has got the veteran experience that it's going to take, especially down to the end of this race. He's not going to be afraid to give a little bit of a bump and a bang to these young kids that are going to be with him. I think Timothy Peters goes to victory, but Bubba Wallace sure going to be right there with him. It's going to be a thriller. Jacob, I'll turn to you from that standpoint, and we'll look forward to Saturday afternoon at Martinsville.
Yeah, we will. And just real quick, I do want to offer my pick to go to Victory Lane on Saturday, and I'm going to have to go with, we've talked about them all night, the Turner Scott trucks, and I am actually going to pick one of them to win this race, and it is going to be the veteran Ron Hornaday. I know it's not going out on too much of a limb, but he's not won since 2011. He's due for a breakthrough. He loves the short tracks, and I say Hornaday gets it done and gets his 52nd Truck Series victory this weekend at the Martinsville Speedway. Kroger 250, Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1 Live. Tune in for that one, but for now, we are done here tonight on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show. For Tom Baker and Kyle Souza and everybody that makes it happen here at Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online, this is Jacob Seelman inviting you to check out RaceChaserOnline.com for all the latest in motorsports news, views, and interviews from around the entire span of motorsports, from 2 wheels to 4 wheels, dirt to pavement, fenders to open wheels, and much, much more. Want to say a special thank you to all the folks at Stock Car Steel and SRI Supplies for making this show possible, and invite you to check out StockCarSteel.com and SRI-Supplies.com for all your shop supply and scrap metal needs. And until Monday night on The Madness, when we're back to break down the entire weekend from Martinsville, I'm Jacob Seelman for Speed 77 Radio, inviting all you race fans out there, wherever you're going to be this weekend, to keep it off the wall until we meet again, and we'll see you at the racetrack. Folks, so long and good night.